back up.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, this will be recorded. I'll also provide you with the slides at the end. So if you want, you don't have to take kind of furious notes. There'll be some reference points on the slides, as well as Dwayne's going to provide you some the recording of this as well. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then we'll go into kind of a bit of a presentation, if you will. So I won't be able to see the chat, I don't think. Let me just see real quick. Chat. Okay, there's the chat. All right, so let me see if I can move this out of the way. Oops. No, I can't. Try this again. All right, so now I can see the chat. So if things come up, let me know. But Dwayne, I'm not going to really look at the chat, so you can let me know if any questions come up.
All right.
So again, the point of today's conversation is to give you some strategies to adapt and to grow. So, right now with all the change going on, it's those that are going to adapt and change with the times that are going to be the most successful, and those that aren't are going to have the most challenges, both short-term and long-term. So the name of the game is adaptation. I'll give you a quick intro. So I'm a marketing consultant. I specialize in co-working spaces over at everspaces.com. And that's my brand. I met Dwayne in where was it? Denver and in the US. I'm actually Canadian. That's why I'm wearing this typical red Canadian shirt. So I'm just north of the US, and we're a little different culture-wise, but very similar overall. I've been building websites for over 18 years since I was a teenager, and I've been doing digital marketing for over a decade. In 2017 is when I officially started Everspaces, although I'd been working with co-working spaces for more than 6 years at this point. So after working with co-working spaces, a few of them, I realized that they were kind of the more interesting clients that I like to work with. And I said, what would it look like if I started specializing in co-working? Because I was able to solve a lot of challenging problems like expansion and growth in new markets for multiple clients. And I said, there might be an opportunity for me to double down and really specialize and really help co-working spaces. So in 2017, I started doing that full time. I still kind of jockey between, I would say about 70% of my clients are in co-working, and about 30% of them are in e-commerce or a couple other different industries. So I spend most of my time in co-working. I don't market anything else, but this is really my main area of focus. So that's about me. Here's what we're going to talk about today. So the high level topics are how to double down on what's working. And I think that's the most important first thing you can do is say like literally what's working and how do we do more of it. And then how to change and pivot and evolve with the times. And we'll talk about some strategies on how you can do that, both financial strategies as well as your services and that kind of thing. We'll also talk about how to adjust your messaging to stay contextual. So, as this COVID thing unfolds, we're going to need to be agile in terms of how we're communicating to our target market, our members, as well as the public. So just going to give you a few strategies and how to do that in a way that doesn't kind of get you in trouble. There's a few co-working spaces that have had difficulties and it's created bad press, like WeWork or some others. But so this is all new. So I'm going to try to give you some ideas to kind of help you kind of, communicate in the right way for the current context. And then, I'm also going to talk about how and why you should build a community and an audience. And, this is going to be something we'll talk about in terms of the importance later on. A big part of what I want to do right now, as well as some closing strategies to help you succeed in any climate. So I'll give you some kind of takeaways that you can think about that's going to help you in any climate. The big thing right now is that there's probably a decreased demand for co-working short-term in Nigeria, just like there is in most of the world. So there's things you can do that are going to help you, earn as much revenue as you can today, as well as set you up for success on the other side of this. I've done a previous webinar, and you can go into my website in the blog section, you'll find it a few posts back. And that was more oriented. This is right when the pandemic hit back in, I think, March. And that was more oriented on how do you save money and conserve so that you stay in business long enough to weather this storm and get through it. And then assuming you're going to stay in business long enough to weather the storm and get through it, what are you going to do to market your business? Because, you can shut down your operations to a certain extent, and some of you are going to have to do layoffs, and there's going to be kind of things that are going to get quieter for you. What is it? But marketing should kind of be continuing on, but it changes. It's less about generating immediate leads and more about building opportunity, developing systems, and kind of generally improving your marketing program so that you can come out of this on the other side healthier and ready to roll as demand continues to increase. And just for reference, I am seeing demand continue in most markets that I work with. Mind you, that's in North America as well as Australia. It is lower, there's definitely less people out looking for office right now, but but there is demand. So we still want to be in business. We still want to be marketing ourselves. We still want to have an offer. And so I'm going to kind of talk about what you can do. I'm going to assume that you're going to keep your cash safe and you're going to try to stay in business as long as you can. And you're going to cover that base first. And once you have that figured out, this is where this stuff will kick in. So this is the topics for today's conversation, and I'll just jump right into it. So, things have changed, and the big question is, okay, now that things have changed and they're continually changing, what should we do? How do we kind of evolve with these changes? Well, Charles Darwin, the guy who wrote the theory of evolution. He was misattributed in terms of saying, only the strong or the fittest survive, as a species. Really what he said was it's the most adaptable to change that survives. And it goes the same with business as well. The ones that are constantly evolving with the times, whether during a pandemic or not, are going to be the most successful. And those that are least likely to change or more resistant to change are going to be the ones that are not going to do as well. So, just like Darwin said, the strongest, the most adaptable survive. That's what you want to do. So it doesn't matter how strong you are today. It's really how adaptable you're going to be now and in the future. So really, you've kind of got three kind of core options in terms of how you're going to adapt or what you're going to do in today's climate. You can, one, go on offense, and that's the Canadian spelling. So I don't know what it is in Nigeria, but I'm sure it's the same. The US use S in offense. That's the same? Cool. We got the British English going on. So you can go on offense. You can wait until things get back to normal, and your guess is as good as mine about what that would look like. Or you can play defense. You can, cut all costs and play really safe and not do anything and just sort of, really just deflect and kind of hunker down. And I don't think that's going to serve you as well either. So if you're on offense, I think you're going to get the lion's share of any opportunity that there is. If you're waiting, you're going to get the mouse's share. And this was an idea brought to me by a business coach, Taki Moore, that I'm sharing with you, but the concept is pretty intuitive. And then if you're on defense, you're going to get the ants share. So that's going to be the smallest share of the pie. And that's not what we want. We want you to have the lion's share of any particular opportunity that's out there. And the way to do that is to lean into the situation. Yes, cover your financial bases, and then say, okay, let's ramp up what we're doing. Let's do things in a certain way that's going to help us today. But more importantly, it's going to help us as demand continues to get back to what it was. So the first thing that you do in any situation, I'm constantly doing this in my own business, and that's how I ended up in co-working. An 80-20 analysis is what 20% of clients, activities, things in our business are creating 80% of the results. And if you look at any business, any situation, you generally will find that 20% of your members are going to give you the most headache, or another 20% are going to give you the most profit, and 20% are going to give you the most referrals and that kind of thing. Or 20% of your services, like private offices, are going to give you 80% of your revenue or your profit. Every business has these sort of 80-20s. It could be 70-30s. It could be 60-40s, but it could be 90-10s. But the general principle is that if you look in any situation, there's this mix, and it's a Pareto's principle, I think. And that's the general concept. So before you go changing anything in your business, I like to look at things and say, look, who's still paying me money? And in my case, with my co-working business, mostly it's the multi-location businesses, and also there's a few of the smaller guys, and I've got a whole different service for them. So, if I were to analyze my business, I would say, well, if you're a multi-location co-working space, and especially if you partner with landlords and you do, that kind of management agreements, I'm your guy. And, that would be my 80-20. That would be my 20% of clients that give me the most income, the most results, that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you have a very similar thing in your world as well. For you, it might be, the established, like if you sell to established businesses or, corporates, that might be your, they might be the ones that are more stable and not asking you to pause and discount quite as much. So they may be your best bet, but look at who's still paying you. Look also to see what new people are interested in what you're offering. So Are you finding that there's now more remote workers coming? I know it's really early to tell, but like literally look at like, where is the money coming from? Is there any new sources of money that I have to maybe adjust and start focusing on a bit more in my marketing? Or, who's currently still paying me, and then how do I continue to serve them? Because that's really the source of your success. And then I like to ask questions like, where did they hear about us? So I like to say, of all my members, where did they hear about us first? So I can spend more time in those areas doing more things that will generate more clients in the same way, whether that's referrals, advertising, Facebook, social media, whatever it is. I try to, for every different member, I try to put a source of where they came from. And then really it's about doubling down on what works. So if you want to be successful, the best thing you can do is continually evaluate your business and roll it into what's working. So before you go making any big changes, look at what's working and double down and do more of that. And then we're going to get to sort of the next phase would be my advice. Before we go on, yeah, is anyone kind of thinking in these terms? Is that, if you can just leave a message in the chat, have you noticed that there's a 20% in your business? Are you seeing any particular type of client or any particular thing that's really giving you the most return, if you will? You can just drop that in the chat. I'd love to know if you're seeing any similar trends. And Doyen, I don't know if that's you, but I can hear some background noise. Are you able to mute anyone or?
Hello?
Doyen, yeah?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I hear a lot of background noise. I don't know if someone needs to be muted or not.
Let me check. Possibly someone. Okay.
And there's a few in the waiting room as well. Oops.
Okay. Can you let them in? You are the host now, so let them in.
Oh, I'm the host. Okay, here, I'm gonna make you. I should make you co-host.
Yeah. And please, you can mute everyone. Mute everyone too.
Okay. I just made you co-host.
Okay. Great.
I'm gonna mute everyone, but yeah, you can unmute anytime.
Great.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that, folks. Just wanted to get the sound right and get everyone in that's waiting. If you just joined us, welcome. I've just kind of gotten started, and you haven't really missed too much. All we've talked about is basically right now what you want to do is be on the offense. You want to be ready to adapt and evolve your business. And if you're on the offense, you get the lion's share. If you're waiting, you're going to get the mouse's share. And if you're on defense, you get the ant's share. So the goal for this presentation will be to help you get on the offense and ways to do that. We talked about doing an 80-20 analysis. This is just a quick recap for those joining. So really focusing on and doubling down on people that are still paying you or new people that are coming in and interested in your space. What are the things that are working? Where is the money coming from? Who are the easiest to work with? Who's the most stable? Who demands who's not asking for big pauses or discounts, and really just try to double down and focus on the things that are working the best for you. So I won't go into all that again, but that's the high level. And we'll also have a recording of this at the end, as well as these slides will become available. Thank you again for joining. So, so let's move on. So let me give you an example. So I work with another client in the e-commerce industry. They were selling parking supplies and, like ATM rolls, coin rollers, money handling bags. So like after the end of the day, when they empty their machines, they can go to the bank and bring it there. So they're selling a lot of this kind of products and services, but obviously as COVID hit, people weren't going to parking lots as much. They weren't going to their office downtown, and all these things were changing. They weren't getting parking tickets. They weren't, depositing as much cash. So they had a choice. They could either wait until this all came back, or they could change what they were offering. And I told them, I said, guys, this is your chance to evolve your business and to find out who is still buying. And if your current customers are still buying, what other things are they buying that you don't already offer? And so they did a combination of changing their products. They started selling COVID related products and also to their existing customers. And then also we were able to get them on the first page of Google very quickly. And they started getting a ton of new customers as well. So a lot of retail people still buying from them, expanding their target market, but they're selling just different things. In a co-working context, you are really in the business of helping your members succeed. You're not really in the four walls in a desk business. I think that's kind of a myth. So if you think of yourself, your mission as helping helping your members succeed in business, then you'll do great. And if not, then then you'll be limited in what you can sell and offer. So we'll get into a few examples on how you can adapt as well. So this is just one example of doubling down, figuring out where people are asking, what people are asking for, what are they willing to spend, what is the market still asking for, what do the market still need, and then starting to sell those things, even if that traditionally wasn't in your business model. So let's get into that a little bit further. Well, obviously in a co-working context, and I'll focus mostly on co-working for the sake of this conversation, but going virtual is your probably best first step. So many of you are still able to provide office services, and some of you are going to have a decreased ability to open your space depending on what the government will allow and demand and all that kind of stuff. So virtual is your first best stop. So if you look around the industry, here's one from Industrious. So Industrious has done a few interesting things. They've built on basically, for their members, they built community. They've also added additional services like exclusive member benefits and services that support, their working from home experience. They've done, they're going online and doing learning, much like what this webinar is. So they're creating virtual programming and events focused on productivity, growth, career development, and more. But they've also done some interesting stuff as well. So those are like for the individuals, for the members, they've also got things like consulting services that they're adding in, remote employee effectiveness. So they're really kind of going above and beyond to say, how do we help companies navigate this and being kind of leaders, business leaders, and presumably bringing in consultants or experts to help their members do these navigations. I think they're also adding things like VA services. So if you are a small business and you needed VA services and you're still paying them on a monthly basis for your membership, I think you'd have access to virtual assistant services as well, which is an interesting add-on. So I want you to really think like we're not like an office-based company, but more like a company that helps your members succeed. And, to the extent that you can do that yourself or bring in partners, that's really going to be a great asset to you, especially if you go virtual and go online. Here's one from Work Nicer. This is a Canadian company. So they have like a member circle where they get together every Tuesday and Friday morning to discuss topics important to you and your business, member-led sessions. So they'll let their members do, financial aid workshops, legal Q&As, marketing, etc. They've got a Slack group. They've got complimentary work from home setup. So much like home gyms, much like CrossFit gyms and other gyms are giving equipment to their members to use at home, they're giving you chairs and desks and stuff if you need it to set up your work from home environment, which I thought was pretty cool as well. And then they've got other services. So they bring in vendors and partners to figure out how they can offer their services to their members and presumably at a better price. And so they're just looking for ways to add on the value as much as they can. So they've done a really nice job, and these guys are at worknicer.com, and this is on the homepage. Another good example would be Common Desk. So Common Desk kind of changed and made an optional sort of work from home membership. And you can see that it's in the top navigation. You've got offerings, locations, and then work from home as its own standalone thing. So they've done a nice job of kind of pivoting a little bit. So you get a day pass for every month that you are a member of the work from home thing. So you can kind of apply it again you kind of get more value on the backside of it. They've got a resource center, social distancing club. So they're, in Slack as well, virtual mail, which is a really big feature right now. People still need mail. So offering that address is really going to be important, especially as more people go and work from home. They've got dedicated staff ready, and they've, virtual events where they, happy hours and that kind of thing. So they're doing their best to create entertainment. They're doing their best to educate. They're doing their best to create community, and they're doing their best to add additional services into the mix. One thing that's interesting about their membership is if you look on the left, on their sign-up form, they let you choose any price you want. So you can spend $75, $150, or any number you want. So it's really an optional pay what you can, pay what you want model. And I think that's pretty interesting there as well. So here is, here's a little more detail on their page. We won't get into all this, but they're doing like book clubs, fitness clubs, gaming clubs, Netflix clubs, and that's part of their social distancing clubs. So you can go to their site and check it out. There's a lot of really great ideas. And, this may not be for you. Your members may not be interested in this kind of thing. It really depends on the community and culture of your space. But there's a lot to be learned by looking around the industry and seeing what others are doing, and then applying some of that to your own situation as well. So the next kind of part of sort of this adaptation and pivoting that is kind of, so you've gone virtual. The other thing that I kind of would look at is like, how do you sell services that maybe you didn't sell before? So thinking not like a co-working space, but thinking like a solutions provider. And the best way to do that is to sort of be a facilitator. You may not be, a legal expert, so you won't provide legal services, but could you maybe partner with other kind of local service providers to provide your members access to various services? So, if you could partner with your local accounting firm, can you get your members to do their tax returns? It's tax time here, so that would be really useful for me. But can you get them to do their tax returns at better prices? Or can you talk to your local web agency who's suddenly very quiet to see if they can help people with their websites or do other little kind of tasks and stuff? So whether you provide a service or facilitate a service, these are really kind of other things you can potentially offer. Just like industrial, could you offer VA services or marketing support? Many of you're all entrepreneurs, most of you, and can you offer maybe advisory services or entrepreneur advisory services? Can you bring together like a panel and do Q&As with other experts at their specific business field? So these things may not be for you. I'm just kind of showing you that there's ways of kind of extending where you can earn your revenue from. Can you rent out some of your furniture if, say, people aren't able to join your space right now, or they're not working, or maybe they're not mandated from doing so? Can you help them set up their work from home setups? Can you help them get artwork on their walls so that it looks prettier in their background? I've got a really ugly piece of art over my shoulder here, but can you get some prettier pieces of art going on? Can you get plants and deliver those? Just thinking outside the box. And how do you serve people as they transition to their work from home? Assuming that's what they're doing. Some of you are still able to serve your market, and that's great. And then, can you do workshops, training, and education like this? So Dwayne, is facilitating this. He's putting information for you guys, but can you do the same thing for your members? And maybe you can even share resources and references. Maybe you can get a local marketing person to do a webinar for you, and then other co-working spaces. Like, there's ways you can collaborate as well. And I wouldn't worry too much about the competition. I would really just be thinking, how do we give our members the best possible experience so that they continue paying us, and we can continue providing value in the best way possible, whether they can pay us or not, really. And that's going to come down to a number of factors. So just to kind of give you a couple one more non-co-working example, because I gave you the one earlier of the e-commerce side of this sort of adaptation. Here's one where a CrossFit gym, these are friends of mine, they started bringing their exercises home. So what we're seeing is a mass migration to online as opposed to in person. So anything you can do to bring your community online and create an experience and educate and create interactions, to create business introductions and referral programs or provide services, that's all going to be really helpful to you. So here's another just non-co-working example, because I think there's a couple folks here that aren't in co-working. So just generally thinking, how do I go online with my business, or how do I sell something new? And this would be another example of someone doing that. So that's evolution. You got to kind of roll with the times as quickly as you can. The other thing, so, we started off by doing an 80-20 analysis. Who's paying you? Where are they coming from? What new markets maybe are you able to serve? We've talked about adapting and pivoting and selling some services and kind of changing the things you sell. Remember, you're there to help your members succeed. You're not there to provide 4 walls on the desk. That's just one of the ways you've done that in the past. So thinking outside the box a bit. The other thing I'll say is kind of, how do you create an offer they can't refuse, right? And really that comes down to understanding deeply. I recommend having conversations with all of your members at some point if you haven't already. I'm sure many of you have. But then how do you create something that is really well matched with their financial situation, with their needs, their interests? And there's a few ways we can do that. So number one is like members who stay and continue paying you month over month. And I think just to take a pause here, I think it's really important to remind members that in order for you to not go out of business, that you need to continue getting revenue in, and that you'll do everything you can to earn that revenue from them, whether they're committed to paying you or not. So these are basically, with that context, like we don't want to just pause all revenue. If at all possible, we want to keep revenue going and provide value that exceeds that revenue. And if not today, if that value doesn't exceed that revenue today, ideally there's some long-term benefit that sort of pays it back. So I continue paying you even though maybe I'm working from home, but then I know that as I come back to work over the long term, I'm going to get a lingering benefit, an ongoing benefit of doing so. So for example, if you stay and pay, you maybe will save 50% or 70% or 20%, whatever. And you can get some meeting room time for free. For, every month that you pay, you get free meeting room time on the other end of this once we return back to work, right? I'd love to know, can you in the chat, just because I want to make this as interactive as I can you tell me how many people are are still open for business and receiving members in the space. You can just put yes if you are still open, put no if you're basically completely closed. I'd love to see that in the chat. I can see it over my other side, just so I can get a good sense of where you're at currently. Looks like
I think it's important that one team member of an organization responds, because there are more team members per organization here.
Sure. Yeah,
so
even
like,
just a general. Yep.
Okay. All right. So maybe for box office, for ventures, for
Florence,
Monster
yes,
Point.
Paul, yep, Cynthia. Okay, planning a reopening. Yes, for smaller numbers. Okay, so it sounds like most of you are sort of still open and serving your members, which is great. You haven't reached the stage where, like, government mandated closing in some places, here in Canada as well as the US and some other places. That may happen for you, so just sort of be prepared for that and continue bringing your community online in advance and in preparation of that. Build relationships with people as much as you can in that time. Planning for reopening, yes, Mona. Okay, so yeah, so right now, if you can get members committed and paying for a longer period, if you can get them re-signed up for 12 months or something and have a benefit on the back end, that's always going to be a really good thing. But that's just one of the ways you can do it. Another way is anyone who signs up now gets a similarly long-term benefit. So you sign up now, and you commit for 6 or 12 months. We'll give you free meeting room time and 25% off your membership, or the first you pay for your first month free, or first 2 months free, or first whatever. It all depends on how much leverage you have and what kind of demand there is. But as you sign up now, make it an offer that people can't refuse. Make it so good that they have to sign up now, because it really secures a benefit. With you, the name of the game is staying in business, right? So if this goes further south, if you have more restrictions on when you can open, you want as much as you can to stay in business as long as you can. And that might mean securing less revenue for longer periods of time, which is another kind of strategy to this. So, just think about your level of security and making sure you lock in sustainability. The last thing you want to do is be losing, thousands of lots of money every month. So the next part is, sometimes, and this may work for you or may not, but, can you defer payments? So if a lot of your members get hit, and they want to still use your space, or they want to still be members or be virtuals, but they can't pay you today. What I've been doing, in some cases, this may work for you as well, is saying, hey, you can continue being a member and we'll just take a payment in a month or 2 down the line, or 3, and just take payments in a longer period of time. So that's another strategy that works. At least you're still accruing revenue. So you're still owed that revenue by contract. Whether that's good or not will be determined by who you offer that to. So use it selectively. But it's a good idea to keep accruing revenue even if you're not paying it, because some people will have an immediate hit to their business, but then will come back in a couple months, and you want to kind of be as flexible as you can and need to be for them. And this is that point about securing less revenue for longer commitments. So you can say, if you've got people that are interested in joining your space, or your current members that are month to month, you could say, hey, we'll basically lock in a price of, X price for the remainder of the year. And maybe it's less money, but then you get that 6 month or more commitment from them as well, giving you more cash flow security. And then the other piece that you could do is, if you find members are trying to pause or cancel, is creating a downsell offer. And that might be your virtual membership, for example. So I tried to cancel a webinar feature recently with Zoom on my thing. And they're like, whoa, before you cancel, we'll give you 40% off, but you need to sign up for the entire year, and then we'll give you this for $20 a month for this webinar feature. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do this. And, so there is options, but you see here that they're not just being like, whoa, before you cancel, why don't we just give you a month-to-month discount? They're saying, no, we'll give you the whole year at 40% off before you cancel. And that might be a good way for you to, collect as much money as you can without losing that opportunity. So the downsell offer is a really good one. And that might be also your virtual membership as well. So those are just some strategies to basically adapting what you're selling. Like, you want to have an offer so that if I'm looking for office space, and you have it available and I find you, and maybe, you know, it doesn't matter who I am, but basically that offer has to be very compelling based on the other available options in the market. It doesn't just mean discounts. And I don't want to just focus on discounting. It might be deferred payments, like we said. So it's full price, but don't pay us for 6 months. Or it might be like, hey, if you sign up, we'll give you free meeting room time for 12 months. For every month that you sign up for or commit to, we'll give you free meeting room time, which is an add-on versus a discount. So there's lots of ways to play with that. So don't just jump to discounts. It'll only kind of hurt you, but you know, find that balance so you stay in business and keep your cash flow in, and do what's right for you. So now that you've sort of pivoted, you're sort of changing and evolving, you know, there is this point of messaging. How are we going to communicate our business? How are we going to market? How are we going to talk about ourselves in a way that is relevant to the current context? How are we going to do it in a way that's not going to upset anybody or offend anybody? Or how are we going to do it also that's going to show that we're taking the situation seriously and we're keeping the space clean? So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think the worst thing you can do is ignore the current situation. That being said, you don't want to make all of your marketing and messaging about, you know, COVID or the current situation, as I call it. So you kind of want to find that happy balance of, look, we're taking this seriously. This is the, you know, we know the situation is happening, but here's what we're doing about it. And here's what the fun stuff is. Here's the experience you can come to expect and enjoy. So if you look at, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he was a psychologist who basically broke down our main needs, and you know what, you know, like from the most important to the nicest to have, but not the most important for survival. So this is based on survival. You've probably studied this in school at some point. The very base is your physiological needs. That's air, water, food, shelter, food, clothing, reproduction, the very basic stuff. From there, you have your safety needs. And, you know, I think as part of your messaging, you need to really kind of touch on that part about safety. So, you know, most people still, you know, have a roof over their head and food on their table, but, you know, can you then also say, like, coming into the office, here's what we're going to do to keep you safe, and here's what we're, you know, taking the worry off of their plate and saying, here's what we're doing. And then you can worry about the community building, the love and belonging, the esteem, the self-actualization. You know, that stuff is nice to have, but it doesn't matter if you haven't built the base below it. So that's where you kind of get into a part of, you know, how do you, you know, making sure that you can't help them with their physiological needs really, but you can help them with the safety needs. And by factoring that in, knowing that that's one of the more important things we need in your messaging is going to really help. So don't ignore the situation. Take it seriously, because if you don't take it seriously, then your members have to take it seriously. You want to take the serious side of things and let your members be relaxed versus the other way around. If you're super relaxed and ignoring the fact that this exists, then your members are going to be like, I don't know, I guess that they're not taking it seriously, and there's a little more concern. So I say address the situation head on every time. There's no point in dancing around it. And that's really the kind of the core of it. But the other part of this that I didn't put in here is, don't make all of your marketing about COVID. Really, this is about growing your business and staying on goal. And just like I'm doing, like, you can say the same things, like adapting who you are as a company, and we're going to adapt with you and change with the evolving needs, you know, as things fluctuate. Do they need help with their financial situation? Do they need help with their growing their business? Who can you introduce them to? You're all, as I said, many of you are entrepreneurs. How can you facilitate more value for them without, you know, maybe you deliver it yourself, and maybe you just bring in people, much like Dwayne has brought me in. He's facilitating value to you through his relationship. So what can you do? And then, you know, make that part of your messaging. Here's what we're doing to be safe. And then here's what we're doing to help you achieve your goals, because people won't give you their money unless you're helping them achieve their goals. So how do you focus? How do you really keep that mindset of, okay, you're safe, but then we're also focused on helping you succeed, however that looks. And it's going to be different for everyone. So you're doing an 80-20 analysis, you're pivoting, you know, what you offer and who you offer to, and you're changing how you're communicating, you know, you're communicating often, right? And that's always a good part. The next part I want you to think about is, how do we think like a media company? And what that means is, you know, how do we create content? How do we build an audience? And how do we kind of create an ecosystem around us? So, you know, a lot of the stuff you do in marketing can be outsourced, and that costs money, but creating content can more or less be done by you, and potentially some, you know, a little bit of help if you need it. So how do you do that? The first way to think about this is that, you know, the people you communicate to are an asset. So the people who are in your ecosystem are extremely valuable to you, and that's going to help you succeed both directly and through word of mouth. So you want to develop as much attention to your business as possible, and you do this through content. The internet is content, right? At the end of the day, you know, all it is content strung together by links, right? That's all the internet is. So if you want people's attention, you need to give them content, information, value, so that they can receive it, and then they give you their attention, and then they build trust and that kind of thing. So if you want to be visible online, the way to do that is with content, and offline as well. You can do offline events and that kind of thing, but not so much these days. So the main thing is content. And then in order to know what kind of content you create, you need to think, well, what do our members actually care about? So if you create content that your current members are going to value and enjoy and care about, then you're going to attract more people like them. So I don't really think about people who aren't members. My members are where all the answers are. So how do I attract more people like my members? Is creating content for my members and sharing that widely and publicly, so that I have more people coming to me. So it's really important to think about what kind of content do they want, what kind of content do they not want to see. And really, content comes down to three main categories. One, you can tell stories. So that could be, member profiles. A lot of people feature their members on social media or their blogs. That could be telling stories of you and your founding story and how you got here. That could be stories of you or your staff. That could be stories of the local neighborhood you're in, and basically talking, about things that happened, things that are happening. Humans are natural storytellers. And that's gonna help people kind of stay in touch with you in an interesting way. The other part is entertaining. Now, I'm personally not very entertaining, which is why I focus on education and storytelling. But some people are a little better at creating more of they can share funny memes or they share videos. So you can find ways to entertain or educate as well. And to me, education is the biggest piece that I focus on. So those are your sort of three buckets of content. And if it's not one of those three, I mean, that's just it. So you can think of what am I best at? I'm like, do I have lots of stories? Can I tell stories about my members? Can I tell stories about what we're doing as a company or my staff or myself? How do we entertain? How do we share videos, share interesting links, share fun and exciting things, create a book club, have a podcast, whatever else. And then how do we educate? And depending on you and your business, you may want to do one of those three things. Now, when it comes to creating content, let me see if I can let me just jump ahead really quick. Really, there's two types of kind of content that I want you to think about. One is macro content. That's like your big pieces of content, like your blog articles, your podcasts, your email newsletter. Those are the kind of the big, meaty pieces of content. And then micro content will just be like little one-off posts. So on the left here, this is a tweet that I posted. It's a very small piece of content, and I just left it on Twitter. And that's an example of micro content. Macro content would be like, here's an article on my website, and then that's much more in depth, and there's a lot more involved to it, and I send that out to my email. So you may not be good at macro content, or you may not be great at micro content. Doing the thing that's going to make that's going to allow you to create the most of it and do it really well is going to be your advantage. So maybe you're not great at writing, so you start a podcast. Maybe you're not great at being in front of a video, so you do but you're great at writing, so you do blog content, or maybe you just focus only on social media because you hate your blog and whatever else. So I'm not saying anything is good or bad, but you can think of what am I naturally decent at, and then how do I create more of it? How do I create more value that my members actually care about? And then there's this issue of when you create this value, leave it on the table. So if you publish a blog post on your website and then you want to share it on social media, and this is the give versus ask part, don't ask people to come to your website to get the value. Put it all in on that social media post in a very summarized short form fashion. Some people will write an entire article and put it in the caption, and then continue in the comments because it's too long for Instagram or LinkedIn. But as much as you can, leave the value on the table, as opposed to saying, here's a link, here's something really good, but go over here to find it. Because most people don't want to leave the platform they're on to consume your content. So you want to try to give as much as you can. And then if your content is good, people will naturally follow you as well. So let me give you a really tangible example here. So here's an example of a Twitter thread by Marketing Examples. And what they did is they took their article. So their article is on the far right there. And they basically took out the components of their article and broke down the value, including the images and the text. And I'm just going to mute someone over here. Don't mind me. And they put it all on the page. So they didn't just say like, here's a link to how Apple clarified their message. They said part 1 in January 1983, Apple, finished the production of the new computer, da, da, da. Part 2, 14 years later. Part 3, there's no computers in their ads. Part 4, simple story. Part 5. So they left all the value there, which makes me want to follow this company because first of all, I love marketing. All the value is there. I don't have to leave Twitter for it. And B, if I really like it, I can click to their website and get more examples of this kind of content. So thinking in terms of leaving the content on the table, creating content that is really good and useful for your target market, and just leaving it out there. You can still link back to your website. I used to think the most important thing was to get people back to your website. I don't think that way anymore. I think the best thing you can do is leave the content there and give people an opportunity to subscribe or to your newsletter or to go back to your website there as well. So this is a different way of thinking that a lot of people aren't using social media for. So going back to the point of your audience is an asset. The more people who are following and subscribing to you, either as an email newsletter or coming to your website or following you on social media, the more eyeballs you have. It's basically free advertising. The way you get to show free ads is to show up over and over again with content they care about, because as soon as they don't care about the content, they're leaving. The way to show up with content that they care about is to leave it all on the table, leave it all on the platform. So if it's a YouTube video, put it on YouTube. If it's a video that you want to share on Instagram, upload it to Instagram, or LinkedIn, upload it to LinkedIn, or video or Facebook, upload it to Facebook. Try not to link to somewhere else, because really that's asking something of someone versus giving. So as much as you can, give value, and try not to ask people to go click a thing or to do something else, because that's just not going to create the same interest in following you. Again, if you've got any questions, you feel free to just drop them in the chat, and I know, Dwayne, you can just stop me at any time, and I can address those. Otherwise, I'll keep going, and I'll have more we can talk towards the end.
All right. Yeah, please ask your questions if you need to on the chat.
Cool. So right now, the reason I talk about content is it's sort of free. As long as you're able to produce content, it really costs you nothing but your time. So it's one of the best opportunities for you to do that. Let's say you're not great at producing content. You can still interview people that are smart, like your members or like experts, and you can record that and put it on your website, or you can have someone write it up quickly for you, a bit of a summary. You can leverage other people's expertise and create content, or you can just tell stories of other people, or you can share interesting, funny videos or what have you, or content from others. So, the audience is the thing you can build. You don't have control over whether people can use your space or not, but you do have control over how much attention you get and how big of an audience you build through content production. And that's going to help you sell more offices in the other end, either directly or through referrals. I used to be able to publish on LinkedIn when I was back in my web design days. I'd publish on LinkedIn, and then a day later I'd have someone reach out to me looking for website help. And it was uncanny. Every time I'd do that, I'd have some kind of a lead, and usually it was through referrals. So, so your audience is valuable. Your network is valuable. I love LinkedIn for that purpose, but whatever platforms work for you, check it out. So then how do you grow this audience? How do you grow this asset, right? Because, that's kind of the name of the game. You, as I said, you can't control demand, but what you can do is control building an audience so that when demand returns to its fullest, you're right there in the right place for them. Well, you do that with good content. Another way to do that is by sharing audiences with non-competitive partners. So what that means is kind of a few things. So you can either do like Instagram takeovers, like you could say, look, our target market are entrepreneurs or our startups or our remote workers or freelancers or something, who locally, ideally locally, because it's a local business, who has the same audience that I do that doesn't compete with me, that isn't another co-working space selling to the same audience. And then how do I cross-pollinate? How do I get in front of their audience, and how do I let them in front of my audience so that those same individuals can do business with both of you? So you've made the pie bigger. You haven't, it's not like there's only, they can choose like either ice cream or gas for their car. Like usually like they're kind of different, right? So, so how do you do that? So Instagram takeovers, or even just featuring other brands that you love or respect, or that work in your space, featuring your members, or, bringing them onto your social platform and vice versa. How do you kind of cross-pollinate your social media feeds? Another way to do this is just by sharing. So let's say the local, I don't know, like I think, Dwayne, you work with Startup Grind, can you share their content, and then would they share your content, so that there's that entrepreneurial overlap without competing with one another. And there's many examples like this. So by sharing other people's content, it makes them more likely to share your content, which is reciprocity. So if I give you a chocolate bar, next time you see me, you're going to want to bring me a coffee. And it's only 10:30 in the morning here, so I'm still drinking my coffee. But that's the thing. So proactively sharing other people's content that have a very similar market or audience to you, and building relationships that way. Doing guest webinars for people with your audience. So this is an example of what I'm doing technically, although I just enjoy talking to Doyen, and this is happy to do this in general. But in theory, I'm getting in front of more co-working space owners like yourselves, therefore expanding my potential opportunity to build and develop my audience. And I've got several hundred people in my co-working audience. The other one being doing guest interviews and podcasts. Can you get on the radio? Can you join someone's podcast? If their listeners are your target market, that's going to really help you. And even if it's not exactly, you'll still get referrals, which is the other part people don't really think about that much. Can you mention other local businesses? Let's say you're a very local co-working space and you're like, here's what this restaurant is doing right now. Go order from them. Here's what these ice cream shop is doing. Here's what this company is doing. Here are 5 people we recommend as lawyers, accountants, whatever, right? Mentioning them, and then maybe having them mention you, and doing some kind of a back and forth thing there as well. And then doing like a joint venture. So if you can partner, like let's say, for example, I said earlier, can you offer services by facilitating the expertise of other service providers? Like, can you bring in a marketer? Can you bring in a lawyer, can you bring in any other business service provider, a virtual assistant, a writer, what have you, and partner with them so that you both get some revenue by sharing those services to your respective audiences. Or they would maybe their customers get a kickback to your co-working space or something else. So doing joint ventures is a good way to do that. An example of this is I'm doing a product with Jamie Russo. She's got a podcast in the co-working industry, everything co-working. And so what we're going to do is we're creating a sales product. So it's going to be the co-working sales system, and that's going to be an info product. And so she's going to promote that to her list, and then I'll get exposure to that, and I'll be promoting it through my list. So now both of our audiences have been cross-pollinated, and that kind of benefits both of us, and we sell a product that's mutually beneficial, right? So there's lots of things you can do. So I always think in terms of how do I rub shoulders with other people who have a very similar audience, and then share it and really just kind of create a flow back and forth. And I think this is the part of audience building that a lot of people don't talk about that much. They always say create good content and the followers will come, but really it's about reciprocity. It's about sharing other people's content, liking and engaging on their posts so that you get in their comment feed and other people see you, and vice versa. It's really about that kind of cross-pollination, if you will. So I'm going to give you I'm going to try to visualize this for you because I'm sure it's intuitive, but I've gone through the hassle of making really, really poorly drawn visual representation of this. I'm not an artist, so you'll see what I mean by that. At the very core of your online presence and your marketing is your website or your platform. Like your platform might be, it could be YouTube as well. It could be Facebook. The concept still applies. Wherever you post content, wherever you publish your content, all roads should lead to Rome. Everything should live on your website, but you can also put it in other places. What we're trying to do is I want to try to show you that through content creation, not only do you develop an audience, but you do so through having a bigger surface area. So the bigger something is, the more likely something is to run into it. And that's what you want to do. You want to be big so that more people run into you, right? And then if you think of a planet, the bigger the planet is, the more gravity there is. So everything revolves around the sun, and that's because it's the biggest kind of, planet or star in our ecosystem, in our solar system. So that's why everything goes around it. And I'm sure it sucks in a whole bunch of stuff. You want to be the same. So the bigger you get, the bigger your surface area is, and then the more gravity you produce in the process. So in the very core of this, just like the Earth's core with the moon flying around, we've got our website and our platform. On that website or platform, these little circles represent content that we publish. So this could be your blog post. It could be video that you produce. It could be podcast interviews. They should all come and live on your website in one place, and you'll naturally start attracting people to it. So those little heads represent people coming to your website and viewing your content. In this particular example, there's 4 people. It's a very small number, and they could represent something a little bit bigger, but you get the idea. It's kind of small. But then you've got social media and email. So Once you have this content, there's a link to it. It's published on your website. You're sharing it on social media in the form of micro content, right? And leaving the value on the table there and tagging people in it if they're relevant, not forcing people to come back to your website, because that way people will see your content, like it, and then engage and follow you on those platforms, or they'll join your newsletter if that's part of your strategy, which I think it should be. So you start to see now that you started with 4 people, and now you've got 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and you start to kind of populate a bigger audience. More people are seeing the value that you're sharing online. Ideally, it's all lined up with what people want, whether that's stories, entertainment, education, that kind of thing. But you always want, every single post should say, what's in it for me, and answer that question for your members or for your prospective members. But yeah, you start to see that this audience starts to grow. But what happens is they start to like your content because you've left it all on the table. You haven't just said, come back to my website to see the content. You've broken it down. You've created a very simplified version of that piece on your social media profile. So they're going to follow you on those profiles. And then when they follow you, they're going to like, share, comment, right? And then when they like, share, and comment, their network, your outer network, is going to see that now. And so you're kind of second degree connections, if you picture on LinkedIn, the people who aren't connected with you directly, but are indirectly, or maybe know you but haven't been following you, they start to become aware of it just through this engagement process that happens. Social media brings up comments and posts that get shared and liked by others. So now your network, now your audience looks like this. And ideally they, as you do this more and more, people come further down into your core, into your ecosystem. And then, as this happens again, as your network starts to see these posts and as your network starts to engage and like your outside network, you're now in the world of strangers. So now your ecosystem, your solar system, is massive. You've got all these people who have heard of you, and there's sort of this and then some people will come all the way down and make it to your website or follow you on social media or just like and engage it, and that kind of creates ripple effects. So the key to this is creating really great content that your current members would really value and love, because that's going to attract more attention from your prospective members as well. So if you focus on startups, create startup content. If you focus on corporates, create corporate content, etc. Or remote workers, or a combination of those things. It's really up to you, but ideally you have a bit of a focus. And your network looks like this. So this is the value of an audience. And now whenever you post something like, hey, we've got a new office coming up, it's going to be this, come ask us for pricing, reach out. You've got a built-in group of people that are paying attention and might be interested in you. And that's where you can more easily sell stuff when you have some scale, or get referrals. And someone says, someone recommends you to a friend and says, hey, I know you were looking for an office space. These guys are just sharing this. They have this thing coming up in July. So you should check that out. And this is where my design skills really reach their pinnacle, as you can tell. But what I want to show you is basically like 2 solar systems collapsing. So this is what happens when you combine audiences, and what it does is you can picture these people spinning around, and some some of them will stay and some of them won't, but they're not just going to leave you and go to somewhere else. If anything, both of these things are going to become bigger. Okay, so I hope I haven't lost you along the way, but this is the benefit of combining audiences, because you get to tap into the entire network of someone else. And I think not enough people are talking about this as an audience growth strategy. Yes, you need great content, but you also need to find ways, either strategically through talking to people, peers who have the same audience, but don't sell the competitive services, and saying, hey, why don't we cross promote each other? Or why don't let's do a podcast interview together, or let's do a video chat or fireside chat, or go on YouTube Live, or do a webinar. Let's do something. This is the way to expand your horizons. You can't control how many people are interested in office space today, but you can control how much content you produce. You can control, who you partner with and who you share and engage with. And this ideally will help you form a much fuller audience. Your surface area will get bigger. Your gravity just means more people are going to come to you. And over the years, the more content I've produced, the more people just come to me. I don't have to go calling anyone for business. I'm always booked solid. This has always worked for me. I probably could have prefaced this whole thing with, every business I've ever started and grown has been grown around content. I've never spent money on advertising, and I've built, several hundred people on email lists, and, I was completely full, booked solid earlier this year. And now I've got a little bit of room, but not much. So this has always worked really well for me. This new combining audiences is a bit newer, and I'm finding that it's working very well. So I kind of recommend you sort of do the same thing if you can. So a lot there so far. I'm sure you kind of have thoughts or questions or concerns, but so please, if you have them, let me know, because I know there's a lot of specifics to your situation. This applies to co-working and non-co-working, but yeah, think like a media company. How do you produce content that's good at scale, whether it's micro content or macro content that your audience actually cares about and isn't just like a thought of the day? Like, I wonder why the sky is blue. Like, your audience, no one really cares about that. You can do that once in a while as entertainment, but generally it has to have a lot of value in it. The next part of this is, so you've got this audience, how do you bring them in closer to you? How do you keep them tight in your ecosystem? It's good to have followers, but how do you create two-way engagement? And that's where your community really comes into play. You may have just your virtual membership or your virtual community and or your physical community. You're all community builders. That's why you're here. So there's the physical community. There's your paid private community. You may also choose to have other types of communities that are free, kind of like, hey, we've got a resource guide here, or we do monthly public webinars for the local entrepreneurial community. I don't know. But then maybe a separate private Slack group. I don't know. But whether you have a free group or not is really up to you. But you may wish to have like a forum, like like a job boards or special offers or something where people can go and communicate with one another, especially if you have a very niche kind of topic. Facebook groups are good for free groups, and I like private Slack groups. I have a paid membership program, and that's in Slack. So that, those are communities. And the benefit of community is that it gives you both ways. So it tells you what your target market, what your current customers, current members are looking for, and you can see what kind of pains, problems, challenges they have, and then you can go and solve them. Back to that first point or two about facilitating solutions, as opposed to just being like, sorry, we can't really offer you offices, so we're not really able to do anything. It's more like, oh, you need financial support. Well, we have connections with the bank, or we have I don't know, accountants who can maybe help you with this, or the government is offering some kind of relief program or something. I don't know. But how do you then, the community is feedback, right? You'd never want to just be in a world where you're just creating content and not hearing any feedback. You really want it to be two-way as much as you can. Social media is good for that, but a community is really great for that. So listening, it gives you an opportunity to listen. So your virtual co-working membership is a great way to listen and stay attuned to the needs of the people in your membership, the people who are paying you, ideally. Having a job board, special offers, member benefits, that kind of thing, doing webinars or training. These are all things you can have as part of a community, whether it's free or paid. And it's a great way to sort of bring that audience home, bring them into a place that you can contribute and add value to. A lot of that's going to be online, but can you partner with local delivery companies or other things to help bring stuff, to their house to make their experience better at home as well, or additional services. A couple quick examples. So this was a Facebook group I helped set up for a past client. They were a CRM company specializing in professional speakers. And we got them building, they had a good audience, and we got them building a Facebook group, and that's been growing slowly. And that's just one example of a way that they can share content, create conversation, hear feedback, hear about the challenges and needs of speakers, and kind of create a two-way relationship. Mind you, it takes a while to build these things. This is my membership program. And it's all about helping co-working spaces fill their space. There's a private Slack community and education built into it. And what that does is, as much like, I actually don't really make like the amount of work I put into it relative to my income isn't that high, but it allows me to get information. It allows me to find out what the current situation of co-working space owners like you, rather than just my private one-to-one clients. It allows me to see at more scale, like what's happening, what are the needs, what kind of questions do they have. I take that information and I create content with it, and I help break down, solutions to their situation as best as I can. And that's where my blog content largely comes from. So in the absence of a community, I don't know where I'd get that feedback. I work with no more than 10 co-working spaces one-to-one, or businesses. And, that's not a really very big sample size. So I would be kind of at a loss. I'd have to go into other communities to find information and create content, because I'm not a co-working operator. So I'm a consultant. So yeah, communities are really, really valuable, whether they're free or paid. Ideally yours is paid. It's part of your virtual membership, but I really just think that that's what you do. You create the audience and you bring them into your ecosystem, your community, and then continue to adapt around the needs of your members. So just some closing thoughts. This is kind of a summary of what we've just talked about. Number one is go on the offense to get the lion's share of the market. So being relaxed and not really being proactive in how you evolve your business is going to hurt you a lot. So you want to be constantly in tune with who's spending money, where are they coming from, who can I continue to serve, what new markets have opened up. Like there's a lot of, for example, a lot of corporate businesses. This may not be your specialization, but a lot of corporate companies are looking for co-working as an alternative to permanent offices. So the flexible office industry is going to come back pretty strong, and so too will the remote worker. I think a lot of companies will be more distributed. So there's going to be a lot of new people coming, and your job is to sort of stay in touch and follow very closely the the interest from people. And the only way you do that is by leaning into the current situation, not being like, well, we can only do so much, and because that's really just going to hurt yourself. We want to just, a lot of us are nervous as owners, right? And we want to just kind of be like, there's only so much we can do, and throw our hands in the air and not do anything. And I think I think that's just, I think we want to kind of lay down and sort of give up, like we're stressed, right? But that's the wrong thing to do. You're entrepreneurs, you're built for this, and you're built for kind of solving hard problems. That's how you got into this business in the first place. So the other part is then, in order to be on the offense, you got to meet your market where they are. So if they're coming into the office, great. And how do you serve them? By being, the safest, best environment. If they're not coming into the office, or you're starting to see downward trends, or if the government ever ends up telling you that they're not allowed to work from the office, what can you do to continue serving them, whether it's facilitating services or adding on additional things, or creating offers that they can't refuse, like we talked about. Pivoting, so who you're selling to, what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and how you communicate it. Going back to the point of safety is table stakes. So, innovate, be proactive with how you're cleaning your space. There's a lot of interesting things going on out there in terms of how people are cleaning their space and keeping it safe. So find innovative ways to do so, and then just talk about it. That's part of your marketing, but it's going to be expected. People are going to expect that going forward. So building your audience through content partnerships and community, that's going to be one of the big things you can do. Have a compelling offer. So people are still shopping. As I said, be ready with something that doesn't give away the farm, but secures revenue for you and gives people extra value for signing up, putting a deposit, and or starting to pay immediately. So having a good offer for every situation is going to be a really important factor for you. And it's going to change. You may not be able to charge the prices you were charging before, but you shouldn't become a discount brand either. So you got to find your value. And we'll talk in the next slide. I'll leave you with a few more closing thoughts about making sure you have enough leverage to sell stuff at a reasonable rate. And the last part that I didn't get into in this time is working on your systems. The companies who are hiring me right now, they're multi-location co-working spaces. So they're bigger, they're in expansion mode, they're growing into new markets, yes, they're going to new markets, what they're doing is they're fine-tuning their systems. They're improving their website, working on their search engine optimization, overhauling their advertising. Maybe their ads were struggling for a long time. They just never paid attention enough to it. They're looking at their CRM, so having a sales pipeline and a sales system so that they're ready when demand returns and they're not just back to square one. They're doing all the things that they couldn't do when they were too busy expanding. And getting ready for when things get back to normal. So mind you, those guys have a bit more money and resources to do so. And many of them, like the most successful ones I'm seeing have pre-existing 12-month commitments in place. So if most of your members are month to month, that's kind of shining a light on a risk in your business. Ideally, you want your business to be so unique and valuable that you can charge minimums of 6 or 12 months commitments. Whether that's still good in today's climate, I don't know. But between that and like private office driven, mostly private office driven co-working spaces that have more of a corporate clientele or established businesses. So the combination of long-term commitments and established businesses have been the ones best weathering the storm. And third is those that are partnering with landlords as well. So just a kind of quick tip for you. I'm not an expert on this, but I see enough to know some things, but a lot of landlords are they're seeing that the market is demanding greater flexibility and they're looking for ways to get into co-working. So if you can partner with landlords that have vacant space that want to get into co-working and do management agreements, that's a great way with low or no risk to basically get a fee or whatever, and a part of the upside for managing a co-working space in a co-owned relationship. So you co-own the brand, but they own the building, and you both participate in the upside. So there's a lot of innovative ways to do that. I can't get into all that today, but I can maybe point you in some directions if you're interested in that stuff. Having systems are really key. So, the best thing you can do is get organized, know your numbers. I've got a whole, I could spend hours talking about this, but being able to know your numbers and how much you're spending to acquire new customers and where they're coming from, all valuable things. So anybody you're working with on your marketing should help you with that. I can always help you as well. I'm going to leave you with some big picture thoughts here, and then we'll get to some questions if you have any. It doesn't have to be related to what we talked about. If you've got questions, we can take any kinds. I'm a marketing expert though, so anything outside of marketing, it gets a bit gray. And I'll tell you if I run out of expertise on a question you ask. But big picture thinking is the quality of your marketing will be determined by your answer to the question of why should I choose you? So if I'm coming to your space, I'm on a tour and someone says, hey, why should I choose you? If you're like, you know what, I don't know, like we've got really good coffee and we've got a really big, window over there and, members are really friendly. Like if you don't have a good answer for it, all of your marketing is going to suck. So the more you can be like, oh, you are an accountant, great, because we actually have 90% of our members are accountants and professional service providers. So you'll be among peers in your space or something like that. Oh, you're a startup? Cool. Well, we offer all kinds of additional services to help support and incubate and give you discounts and offers to certain things to help your business survive or to help your business take off. Hey, you're a freelancer? Great. Well, what we do is monthly meetups where we talk about each other's business and then try to develop, relationships and networking and business referrals. So like whatever your thing is, your answer has to be clear. Like, oh, we're in the best location, or we've got an outdoor patio that's X thousand square meters, or whatever the case is. Why should I choose you will determine how good your marketing is. If you've got a very clear and undifferentiated answer, or differentiated answer rather, you're going to succeed a lot more. I'm a marketing consultant for co-working spaces. I don't really know who else is out there doing the same thing, at least anyone credible. Maybe they're out there. Otherwise, they're just general marketing agencies. That's why I'm talking to you and you're not just paying attention to some random webinar. It's because of that specialization. So if you came along and said, well, Kev, why should I choose you? I'll be like, well, because I'm the only guy who really, really deeply knows how to market a co-working space. And I have systems and documents and experience and data. Or you can go to any number of other marketers out there and they can probably give you an okay job of getting, more members for your space. So that's my answer, but your answer will be different. The second part, in a big picture takeaway I want to kind of give you is, if you removed your logo and branding and described your business, would I know who you are? And if you couldn't really, if you're not distinct in the market, then you're always going to have negative price pressure, downward price pressure. So just like if someone came to me and said, hey, Kevin, you're a marketing consultant, why should I choose you? Or if I said, look, I'm not going to tell you the name of my brand, but I'm a co-working marketing advisor and I help co-working spaces get full. You don't know me that well. Most of you don't know me, but in general, if you knew the landscape of available options, you'd be like, oh, that's Kevin. He's the only guy kind of doing that. And I'm sure there's others. In my mind, I'm the only guy. So yeah, removing your logo, it's people buy based on differences, right? I've got some headphones here that are sort of partially broken, but there's Apple headphones and then there's all headphones. So when I'm thinking about what kind of headphones to buy, it's the differences between the two options that I buy. It's not really, it's not just the price or anything. It's the differences. So being distinct is a really valuable thing in the market. Having a weak value proposition, meaning having a weak, here's what we help you do, or differentiation is like cutting it on a tree with the back of an axe. So if I can't tell you apart from others and you can't answer why I should join your space, and you basically try to serve everyone from the freelancer to the enterprise client, you're going to be you're not going to be able to cut through the noise. There's not going to be a consistent, really tight hook that's going to make all of your marketing good. So it's all about specificity and finding that value. And being specific about who you serve, but most importantly, why you're the best at serving a specific type of person or a specific type of business, for example. Even if it's something small, like we've got world-class service, or we have the most health-filled environment where we provide smoothies and health foods and snacks and a gym in the space. The more specific you are about the value you provide, the more you're going to cut through the noise and the less downward price pressure you're going to have. The more undifferentiated you are, the weaker your answer to why should I choose you, the weaker your differentiation is, the less successful your marketing is going to be. It's really hard to do good marketing when you're broad in general. You have to be very specific as much as you can. So that's it. That's the whole webinar that I have for you. I hope there was enough specific info there, but big picture is keep doubling down on the things that are working, create lots of content and build your marketing up, cross-pollinate with others, and keep adapting as much as you can. And I hope that sort of summarizes it. Happy to take questions if anyone wants to do that as well. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. My contact information is there, by the way. The best thing to do would be to go to everspace.com if you want to get some free articles. I used to write every single day, and I've slowed down a lot since having a baby a few months ago. And
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's an exhausting time, but a rewarding one.
All right. Okay, guys, let's ask questions if we have any. You could just read the answer. I could unmute you or post it in the chat section if you have any questions. I see Betty, Daria, I see Cynthia, I see Manuel, Esther, I see Fire Williams. So if you have any question, just ask. Florence, Gina, Anthony, Ido, Ifeanyi, thanks for joining us. Jeremiah.
Thank you, Fire.
All right, thanks a lot, and congratulations, Kevin. Fire, okay. Fire, okay. Do you have any question, Fire? Should I unmute you? Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Not so much of a question, but just to say a big thank you. It was quite insightful. In our hub, one thing that has helped is to sit down, step back, and list out all the value proposition we have for the various services we offer.
Yep.
And then looking again at who the target audience is, and then looking at what lead magnets we can offer to them. So that's just the contribution I have to add, because that for me was a big eye-opener, and it helped me to reevaluate, who I should be targeting right now. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Fio. And, looking at each service and saying, who's our best member for private offices or dedicated data? And what is it about them that makes them great? And that's going to give you a lot of answers, like you were saying, because then you can work backwards. You can say what lead generation,
Thank you.
Thank you, Fio. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Does anyone else have any things that are working that they want to share, or any other examples of trends that they're seeing, or things that are working? Nope. How about you, Diane? What are you seeing? What are you finding that is working for you?
It's quite a very difficult time, but I feel like a different economy is going to open up after COVID, right?
Yep.
Because in the last 1 week, we've had 3 new customers.
Yep.
And I'm asking myself, why are people renting offices during COVID? What it means is that some people will go out of business because of the issues around, and some new set of people will come into the economy. So I think it's very important to really analyze the economy to say whose business is growing in COVID, which kind of businesses are growing in COVID, and that can help you target your marketing properly, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know what the market is like there, but examples of that are professional service providers, e-commerce. So right. If you have a space that can house or warehouse anything, e-commerce stores might be a thing. But yeah, that's a really great point. Is who, and I would ask you, Doyen, of the people who signed up, who are they? Why? What's going on with their business?
A lot of them are tech businesses. Yeah. And what we also realize is that they are not willing to go the long haul. So they just came in as short term, like 1 month, 2 months,
okay,
just to test things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You could say, you can give them there's a lot of things you can do, but you could say, come try it for month to month. But then if you sign up for 6 or 12 months, we'll basically give you X, some other kind of benefit.
Sure. So Mercy has a question. Mercy, can you check Mercy's question, Kevin?
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you, Mercy. However, for co-working spaces, offering different services with multi-purpose spaces, how do you cut through the noise? What do you mean by multi-purpose space? What do you mean by multi-purpose spaces?
I think I should unmute. Can you unmute Mercy so she can ask a question? Mercy, so you can talk now.
Hello, Kevin. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I work with Working Connect. Working Connect has different spaces. So there is the co-working, which is the freelance space where different people can come in. There is the what they call it. There is the workstations for private offices and all that. So I'm just wondering. And there is the conference hall. Now we're not doing conferences anymore. We're all having meetings and e-conferences. So I'm just wondering, with all of these changes, and you were talking about specificity and the fact that you shouldn't have too many things running, or you should focus on one thing and all that. And so I was wondering, how exactly with the different services, how do you cut through the noise? Right. So
Yeah.
now I'm not just looking at freelancers or nomads. I'm also looking at people in corporates, right, that are looking to do away with their big offices and just downsize because the economy is not moving as it used to.
Yeah.
Right. How exactly do I fuse all of this, and how do I go through with all the things that are happening? How does this work actually?
It's a very good question. So there's kind of two parts to that. I think on the corporate side, you're saying like, okay, corporates are downsizing. I think the best thing you could do is educate them on how that could work and tell them what a hybrid model of work from home, flexible office, HQ thing could look like. And so I would be thinking in terms of like, how do I create a library of resources and information to help people transition into that? And then in addition to that, depending on who you're going to serve, whether they're, like a lot of those are going to be employees. So maybe you could, for example, maybe part of your community would be employee development and career development, and where you bring in like, maybe there's career coaches or people that help, or executive coaches or people that help, employees succeed, not just entrepreneurs. So I don't have a very specific answer to that situation. One thing that came to mind when you mentioned that you do a lot of events, for example, what you might want to do is start gathering a community of event planners, for example, corporate event planners, and build like a hub for corporate event planners or whatever type of events you do, if event planners even do that, and really just helping people like create good online events, and then in the future offline events as well. So you can have different niches and different subgroups within your messaging. But yeah, I mean, I think really when I was talking about the additional services that you provide, I meant mostly focus on serving your existing members and finding out what services they would need in it. Like if I'm still paying you for an office every month, but I can't visit it or not as much, can you support them by providing low cost services that basically cost you nothing compared to what their fees are, and allows you to add additional value so that they get as much value out of it as possible. So it's not really about trying to go and sell, like creating a marketing agency. It's really about serving your existing members as best you can.
Okay, thank you. However, I think I wasn't clear enough. So now, right, because of the changing sphere in the ecosystem, and we're trying to, and it's affecting everybody's business in terms of revenue and all that, how exactly do we get new customers in from from also the corporate side? So for big businesses, so new customers like big businesses or businesses that are not really interested in using their big offices anymore, because most people do not see the need. People are going flexible working right now, right? So let me have some of my staff work from home. Let me have some of them work from the office. So how do we focus? What do you think should be the marketing strategy for that? How do we get those people? How do we get entrepreneurs? Like different people who have been affected by this whole COVID-19, which is like almost the whole world and the whole different sectors. So how do we get those people? Because what I'm thinking is, if we're going to be doing, I remember this person spoke about the business model. And yes, it has to change, right? But how exactly? What do you think is the right marketing strategy to bring in these people in?
I think it's really around, first of all, like what you said, is knowing a very specific group of people and not trying to just attract anybody. Sorry, I'm getting some noise. I think it's from Esther. Esther, I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. So not trying to just appeal to everybody, but thinking, okay, how do I bring corporates in? So the way I do that, the way I do anything is I do it through content and education. So I say, can you find data and trends that back up this move to flexible office space? And there's tons of it. Like I'm on LinkedIn following a bunch of people, and all they're doing is sharing what the common thread is. Like with, Avis and Young would be a brokerage, for example, that specializes in flexible office and traditional office. What we're seeing is that there's a trend between flexible office, work from home, and traditional office. And then somewhere in the middle, there's sort of this hybrid. So Avis and Young is creating content, for example, and again, they're a brokerage, but they're creating content to educate the market saying, hey, this is the way it's going. This is the future. Here's how we're well capitalized to provide you with that bespoke, that custom solution based on those three things. In your particular case, you got to first of all do something in your space that's going to make you a better option for those corporate clients that are looking to sort of become more flexible using your space. I always said that corporate clients will choose a co-working space for their satellite teams or for their headquarters only if it reflects the caliber and the quality of what their headquarters will look like. So it has to be of a certain quality. It has to have an environment that is professional and somewhat corporate if you're going to attract those people. So if you have that and you can really truly serve them, what you do is a couple of things. One is you talk about the benefits of going flexible versus a traditional lease that could be 5 or 10 or 15 years on their balance sheet. And that could be like talk about the costs associated with traditional versus flexible office space. Talk about the things that they may not know about choosing a co-working space. Like not all of them are the same. If I'm a corporation, I wouldn't want to be in an environment that is for startups because it would reflect poorly on me if there's some kids that are trying to get the business off the ground and we're supposed to be an established professional business of a certain size. So I would make all of your marketing for them focused on that transition. Like, here's what you need to know. Here are the things you need to avoid. Here's how to choose a co-working space and be a thought leader. And over again, repeat business or repeat content, creating like a guide or an ebook, like the ultimate guide to moving from traditional office to flexible office. And maybe that's a thing that they have to give their email to get. And then doing, webinars if you can. Video content breaks through the noise. I'm not sure how popular LinkedIn is in Nigeria, but I'm sure it's pretty popular. But finding ways to get that content out there, and educating people and being the leading educator, the leading source of knowledge on that topic. But that means you're going to exclude the startups. You're going to exclude the event planners. You're going to exclude you can still do, like, the thing about positioning is you can pick, a corporate clientele and you'll still get the small businesses around it that resonate with that kind of a corporate atmosphere. But if you're also trying to attract freelancers and startups and small businesses and corporations and satellite offices, you're going to be creating a confusing message. So the best strategy makes a trade-off. I position myself, I market to co-working spaces, but that means I say no to the rest of the world. And that's a big trade-off, but that gives me the advantage of actually being able to, I have like 120 point checklist for co-working space marketing that I bring, in Basecamp, a project management tool that I bring my clients into. I've got courses, I've got knowledge, I've got experience. So to your point, being a thought leader in terms of content, creating a resource hub or a section on your website, creating video or podcasts or some rich media as much as you can. Speaking to brokers are also trying to figure out, like, hey, our clients are asking for flexible office. Who is going to be the right person to take them into as an alternative to traditional offices? Is it going to be, is it going to be this co-working space or that? Like, there's maybe most of the market is focused on the startups. I don't know, or the small biz. If you become the obvious choice for corporates, and through content or repetition, and then outreaching to these brokers and having conversations with them, and maybe even bringing them on a video or a podcast, that's going to position you. But that means saying no to other things. You'll still get small business clients, but that plus talking about the things you're doing to be the best solution, the most flexible, scaling up and down for those companies.
Okay. Cynthia has a question, Kevin.
Yep. I hope that answers your question, Mercy. Let me know though in the chat if you have any follow-ups to that. I'll jump to Cynthia's question. Can you speak more on social interactions and events? What trends do you see now, and how do you think social interaction for hubs will evolve post-COVID? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, right? I don't know how long it's going to take before we're all doing social events. There's people talking about, buffets are no longer going to be a thing, or like, shared food and that kind of stuff. So you're welcome, Mercy. I hope that answers your question, but I'd love to, if you got follow-up questions, you can email me or in here. But it's, yeah. So Cynthia, is your business mostly events driven? Like, is that a big part of your business?
Cynthia, can you hear? Did you hear Kevin's question?
Yes, I heard your question, Kevin. So, we're also a co-working hub. We're not so centered only on events, but I mean, I believe that there's a need for a lot of interaction and social networking and all of that, and that's one of the things we were working on in our hub before COVID-19. We would want to continue to build networks, social networks in the hub, and so I mean, I would want us to be well prepared or positioned now and also post COVID. That's the reason why I posed the question.
So, okay, so you're mostly a co-working space with some events?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I mean, as far as the events business goes, I don't know. It will so much will depend. 2020 is like, let's just get through 2020 and then we'll figure out what 2021 will have to offer. So I would personally write them off. I mean, like, maybe this is pessimistic. I look down two roads. One is extreme optimism. Like, we find a vaccine and there's mass testing and everyone's like, therefore not as worried. And we've got all these things. Or it's just going to be really, really tough for a little while and then get better in the long run. So, I mean, the best thing, I don't know specifically, like, social interaction is happening online. We're doing a lot of breakfasts and coffees and happy hours and networking events. So how do we help, who needs what and how do we help refer someone to these types of things? So I don't know. Does that, I know that doesn't answer your question because that's pretty intuitive, but how can I get more specific on that for you?
I think you've answered the question, Kevin. Pretty much, no one can tell when these things will get back. So we just have to focus on what's working, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm of the mindset, I've always been like, see what customers need and then just build that and like, just keep changing my business model and keep evolving to that. So if I had a big event space, I would say, can I turn this into more office space?
Private offices, right?
Private offices, right? Or maybe even warehousing space if I've got a lot of e-commerce clients or people that need, deliveries, and maybe that has a good access to the outside and they can all tap into it and have their own site. I don't know, but yeah. It really is a matter of like, don't wait till events to come back. They're not coming back 2020. Maybe they will, and then you can shift. And I don't want you to accrue big costs, but yeah.
All right. Any more questions?
You're welcome, Cynthia.
Okay. Everywhere's quiet. So
oh, you're back.
Was very okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you again. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that we've had a great time with you. Your session has been really, really, really valuable to us. And as you can see by the participants, we had about 24, that's about 100% throughout the 2 hours. So thank you very much. Just maybe your last words.
No, just don't think in terms of being a co-working space. You're there to help businesses succeed and try to be specific about who you help them succeed in. And your best marketing is talking about the very specific things you're doing to serve your customers. So the best marketing is just talking about what you're doing. And so do cool things and you get to tell cool stories and think outside the box and be ready to evolve. But thank you. If you want to subscribe to my newsletter, everspaces.com, you'll see the thing pop up. I give bite-sized information and yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you all today.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So I posted Kevin's Twitter handle on the chat. You can follow Kevin right away. And this webinar is recorded, so we'll send you the link as well afterwards so you can watch and share with your friends. If you have any questions, please don't fail to send Kevin an email or send him a private chat on Twitter. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Thanks, Kevin.
And I'll share the slides too. I will share with you.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you. So we'll send the slides to everyone afterwards.
All right.
Thanks for coming around, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.